Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to be doing chemistry, paper 2, multiple choice. This is the May-June 2020 series. This is the May-June series of the 2020. So let's get started. Question number 1. A mixture of ice and water is left to stand and the ice melts. Which rule describes what is happening as the ice is melting? Well, when the ice is melting, the temperature of the mixture will stay the same. This is because the energy in the heat energy in the process is used to break bonds. Essentially, this is the ice is undergoing a change of state by using the thermal or heat energy. Therefore, the temperature of the mixture will stay the same. The energy changes, however, this energy is used to overcome the attractive forces, and therefore D is the correct answer. Question number 2. Which piece of apparatus is used to measure 25.0 centimeter cube of sodium hydroxide? Remember the question, it gives you an definite or an precise value measurement with the 0.0. And exactly, if you want to measure exactly 25.0 centimeter cube, you have to use a pipette. And you have to know how the pipette looks like, and this is the pipette. Therefore, D is the correct answer. Question number 3. Paper chromatography is used to determine the RF value for 4 different food colorings. Which food coloring has an RF value of 0.6? Remember the RF formula. The RF formula is basically the distance that is moved by the substance divided by the distance moved by the solvent. So the distance moved by a substance divided by the distance moved by a solvent. So the distance moved by a solvent is 25 centimeters. And so we have to actually just divide each and every single one of them. So let's start with A. 10 divided by 25. It's not going to give us 0.6. Let's look at C. It is 15. 15 divided by 25 gives you 0.6. And therefore the RF value, the C food coloring has the RF value of 0.6. Question number 4. The diagram shows the electronic structure of a particle with a nuclear number of 40. Remember, the nuclear number is basically the number of subatomic particles in the nucleus, and protons and neutrons make up the nucleus. So the table shows the suggestion of 3 students, 1, 2, and 3, made to identify the particle. Which students are correct? Okay, firstly we see that the particle 1 is argon, particle 2 is chlorine, particle 3 is calcium ion. Okay, so we have to know what does this diagram show. Okay, so there is 40 protons. It has a nuclear number of 40. So the proton plus neutron is equal to 40. Okay, and then we see that there are the electronic structure is 2, 8. So they have full outer shell. Electrons. Now this means that it has to be in the noble gas. Okay, it could be a noble gas, or it could also be an ion, a positive ion or a negative ion. We don't know that for sure, but we know a fact that argon has the electronic structure 2.8.8, and therefore student 1 is correct. And another one of them is calcium ion. Remember, the calcium ion has a 20 proton number. Calcium has 20 proton number and therefore 20 electron. So it will have the electronic structure 2882. However, since it is a 2+ ion, it's going to lose 2 electrons and be left with the electronic structure 2.8.8, and therefore they are both equal. Thus, student 1 and student 3 are correct. Therefore, B is the correct answer. Question number 5. The electronic structure of two atoms P and Q are shown. P and Q combine together to form a compound. What type of compound bonding in a compound, and what is the formula of the compound? Okay, so we have to look at the outer shell electron. The outermost shell electron. So we see in the Q it has a valency of +1, and we can see that in the outer shell of the P, we can see there's 7 electrons, and so the two are likely going to form an ionic compound, because this one electron can get transferred to the 7 electron, so it will become 8 electron to be a complete outer shell electron. And so the type of bonding will be ionic, and because it's just one Q molecule will make up PQ, so 1 electron is going to be given to P and it's going to be PQ, and therefore the formula is PQ, and therefore it is the correct answer. Question number 6. Which statement about the structure of metal explain why metals are malleable? Remember, malleable, you have to learn the definition. It is the ability of a metal so that it can be stretched. Basically, it can be hammered into shape. You have to get this definition, hammer into shape. So, why is the metal malleable? Well, this is because if you look at the structure of metal, there are positive metal ions in a sea of negative electrons. So you can see that the metal ions can slide over each other, therefore they can be hammered into any shape you want. Question number 7. Okay, we see the bonding structure, melting point of sodium chloride and sulfur dichloride are shown. Why does sulfur dichloride has a lower melting point than sodium chloride? Now we can see that sulfur dichloride is made out of non-metals, and this tells us it is most likely a covalent compound. Meanwhile, sodium chloride is made out of sodium plus iron and chloride minus iron, and therefore it is an ionic compound. You have to know the properties. The covalent compounds, the covalent bonds, right, in sulfur chloride are weaker than the attractive forces between the molecules in sodium chloride. This is false because covalent bonds are actually very strong, but the thing that is not strong is the intermolecular force, which is basically the between molecules, the attraction between molecules, and that is the weak one, not the covalent one. So many students really do get confused in this part. So okay, let's move to B. The covalent bond in sulfur dichloride are weaker than ionic bonds. No, it could actually be even more stronger than ionic bonds because we don't know that. Okay, so the attractive forces between molecules in sulfur dichloride are weaker than the attractive forces between molecules in sodium chloride. Okay, this is false because the attractive forces between molecules in sodium chloride is actually stronger. So D is only the remaining option. So the attractive forces between molecules in sulfur dichloride are weaker than the ionic bonds in sodium chloride. Now this is the correct answer. Question number 8. Lead 2 nitrate reacts with potassium iodide to form yellow precipitate lead iodide and soluble salt KNO3. What is the equation for the reaction? Okay, so basically this is a balancing question. It is testing whether you know how to balance equations. Now we know that PbNO3 is going to react with potassium iodide, and we are going to get KNO3 and PbI2. Okay, so we have to look at the equations given. Let's look at from the bottom first. So we see PB, there is 1. So there is 1 nitrogen, there is 2 nitrogen on the left hand side and 2 nitrogen on the right hand side. So nitrogen can be ticked off. PB, yes, nitrogen is also balanced. Now we see that there are 6 oxygen here and there are also 6 oxygen here. So oxygen can be ticked off. Let's see, there's 2 iodine on the right hand side and 2 iodine on the left hand side, so it can be ticked off. There are 2 potassium ion there and 2 potassium on the left hand side as well, so everything is balanced, therefore D is the correct answer. Question 9. The Haber process is a reversible reaction. The reaction has a 30% yield of ammonia. Which volume of ammonium gas measured at room temperature pressure is obtained by reacting 0.7 moles of hydrogen with excess nitrogen? So we can see that there is excess nitrogen here. So we have to actually use the hydrogen number of moles to compare to the ammonia, because hydrogen is a limiting reactant. So we can write a molar ratio H, NH3. So it is 3 is to 2. 3 is to 2. So we see that there is 0.75 moles of hydrogen. Then we just have to 0.75 multiplied by 2/3. Now this gives us 0.50 moles. So we now know that there is 0.50 moles of ammonia. Now we just have to find the yield of ammonia by using this equation. Mole is equal to volume over 24 dm cubed, or molar volume. So we want to find the volume, which is mole multiplied 24 dm cubed. So the mole is 0.50. We're going to multiply by 24. We are going to get 12 dm cubed. However, when you look at the question, it is given in centimeter cube. Remember, 1 dm cube is equal to 1000 centimeters cube, and therefore 12 dm cube will equal to 12,000 dm cube. Therefore C is the correct answer. C is the correct answer. Okay, moving on to question number 10. Electrolytes can be broken down by electrolysis. Which rules are correct for each electrolyte? Okay, remember electrolysis, one thing very important, cation will go to cathode, anion will always go to anode. So, and then another feature of electrolysis is basically the ability of selectively discharge. So you have to know some molecule or ions are going to be discharged rather than some other type of ions. For example, the H plus ion is always going to be discharged over the more reactive metals such as sodium when it comes to the aqueous solution. Okay, now let's look at the question. Dilute aqueous sodium chloride. Okay, it is aqueous. This means hydrogen is going to get discharged at the cathode. And at the anode, oxygen is going to be produced. This is correct because it is dilute. Concentrated hydrochloric acid. Well, this is hydrogen is going to get discharged and chlorine is going to discharge as well. Molten aluminum oxide. For the cathode, this is an anion or the negative ion. An anion, remember, only goes to anode, but this is a reaction at cathode, so number 3 is wrong. Concentrated sodium bromide, aqueous. Remember, in aqueous solutions, if the metal is more reactive than hydrogen in the reactivity series, such as sodium, it is not going to be discharged. Therefore 4 is wrong, so only 1 and 2 is correct, therefore A is the correct answer. Question number 11. The electrolysis of aqueous copper-2 sulfate using inert gases is shown. Which statement about reaction at the electrode is correct? So you can see the positive and negative. The positive side is the anode, the negative side is the cathode in electrolysis, of course. Okay, so we have to know which reaction is correct. Let's see the first statement. Copper ions will gain electrons at the negative electrode. Okay, before we start this question, remember the acronym CAT-RED. This basically means that at the cathode, right, oxidate, I'm sorry, not CAT-RED. You can remember anox and CAT-RED, yes. So And at the anode, oxidation will take place, and at the cathode, reduction will always take place. And since copper ions are metal ion, it is a cation. And remember, a cation will always go to the cathode, which is the negative electrode. So at the cathode, it is going to be reduced. And remember the acronym oil rig. Oxidation is loss of electron, reduction is gain of electron. So at the cathode, reduction occurs, therefore the copper ions are going to gain electrons, therefore it is the correct answer. Question number 12. Methane is burned in excess oxygen. The equation is shown. Bond energies are also shown, what is the energy change for this reaction. Okay, so here usually they would draw the structures out for you for clear purposes, but now they don't actually draw it for you, which you'll have to do it yourself. Remember the equation, the enthalpy change, which is bond breaking minus bond making. So bond breaking here would be in the left hand side, and the right hand side is the bond making. So let's draw the structure together. Okay, let's draw the structure. Okay, so okay, I think I dropped H2O. Okay, so we have to actually see what is bond breaking. So in here we are going to break 4 of the CH bonds. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to break 4 CH bonds, and plus we are also going to break 2 oxygen bonds, 2 OO bonds. So you can just look at the value of CH, and which is 4110, so 4 multiplied 4110 plus 2 multiplied 496. Now this is the bond breaking. We are going to minus it by the bond making. Bond making here is CO2, which is CO2. There's 1, 2, so there's 2 CO, which is 805. 2 times 805. And then since we get 2 water molecules, there is going to be 4 OH. Therefore we are going to add 4 times 460, and then if you minus them out together, you are going to get an enthalpy change. So A is the correct answer. Question 13. Which statement about hydrogen fuel cells are correct? Water is formed as the only waste product. This is correct. Both water and carbon dioxide are formed as waste product. This is wrong. The overall reaction is H2 plus O2 equal to H2O. This is correct. The overall reaction is endothermic. This is wrong. It is exothermic, and therefore 1 and 3. A is the correct answer. Question 14. Which list contains only chemical changes? Okay, chemical changes. There's also another thing called physical changes, and you have to distinguish between them. So a melting, evaporating, dissolving is a physical change. Rusting, freezing, and subliming is also a physical change. Boiling, condensing, and distillation is also a physical change. However, combustion reacts involving the carbon organic molecules with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water. Now this is a chemical reaction. Neutralization as well is acid and base, and therefore C is the correct answer. Question 15. The result of adding excess marble chips to hydrochloric acid at 50 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius are shown. Only the temperature is changed. Which rules describes the reacting particles at 30 degrees Celsius compared to those at 50 degrees Celsius? Okay, we can see that the gradient of the 50 degrees Celsius is actually much more steeper gradient, and the 30 degrees Celsius graph is actually less steep. So if the gradient is more steeper, it means the rate of reaction is actually higher. And if the rate of reaction is higher, the collision rate is higher, and the collision energy is higher. Therefore, A is the correct answer. Question number 16. Methane reacts with steam. Oh, I'm sorry. The question says at 30 degrees Celsius. So we actually have to look at the 30 degrees Celsius compared to 50. So if we compare 30 to 50, the 30 collision rate is actually lower and energy is also lower. So D is the correct answer. Pardon me, I was wrong about that. 16. Methane reacts with steam and an equilibrium is reached. The forward reaction is endothermic, so the backward reaction is going to be exothermic, which row shows the amount of hydrogen at equilibrium changes when the pressure or temperature is changed as indicated. Okay, so let's look at option 1. If the temperature is decreased, it favors the backward reaction. If temperature is decreased, it favors the exothermic reaction. And if the pressure exothermic reaction, and therefore the amount of hydrogen is going to decrease because that reaction is going backwards, and therefore E is the wrong answer. Let's look at B. If the temperature increases, it will favor the endothermic reaction, which is the forward reaction. The forward reaction is basically this CO plus H2. And so the amount of hydrogen will actually increase, but here it's decreased, so B is the wrong answer. And let's look at C. Let's look at C. So C is actually not changing the temperature, no change, but they are changing the pressure. If the pressure increases, remember pressure always goes from high mole to lower mole, the side width to lower mole. So let's look at the equation. There is 1. So there is a total of 2 moles on the left hand side, and there's a total of 4 moles. 1 plus 3 is 4 moles on the right hand side. And so it's going to go from high to low, and therefore it's going to favor the backward reaction, and therefore the hydrogen is going to decrease. Therefore C is the correct answer. Question 17. When aqueous iron 3 chloride is added to aqueous potassium iodide, a chemical reaction occurs and iodine is formed. Which statement is correct? Okay, for this question, it is an oxidation reduction question. So, we have to know that potassium iodide Ki is actually an agent. Okay, so it is actually an oxidizing agent. So, first, iodine ions are oxidized, they gain electrons in this reaction. That is wrong, because here we can see that the Fe3 chloride and potassium iodide, okay, so the iodine is formed. Since iodine is formed, the I minus ion in potassium iodide is going to turn into I2, and this is because it's going to lose 2 electrons. It's going to lose 2 electrons. So the iodide ions are oxidized because they lost electron. Remember, oil rig, oxidation is loss of electron, reduction is gain of electrons. That B is the correct answer. Question 18. I'm sorry for the first question. Potassium iodide is not an oxidation agent, it is a reducing agent. That was my mistake, sorry about that. Question 18. The graph shows the pH of solution as an acid is added to alkali. Acid plus alkali, salt plus water, which latter represents the area of the graph where both acid and salt are present. So, where both acid and salt are present, meaning there is an acidic condition. Therefore D is the correct answer. And okay, question 19. Which statement describes a weak acid? Now you have to memorize the meaning of weak acid and strong acid. In weak acid, it is a proton donor. It is partially ionized in aqueous solution. Okay, question 20. The apparatus shown is used to prepare aqueous copper 2 sulfate. What an X and Y? Okay, we want to prepare a copper 2 sulfate. So the solid we are going to add is actually going to be adding excess of copper oxide, and Y is going to be dilute sulfuric acid. So this is going to form copper sulfate. So it's going to be copper 2 oxide, dilute chloric acid. Now you could also in theory use copper hydroxide. You could also use adding copper carbonate. This is called the adding excess amount of insoluble, because when you cannot react copper with hydrochloric the sulfuric acid directly, because copper is below hydrogen in reactivity series and therefore cannot displace hydrogen. Therefore this reaction will not work. Instead you have to use the excess of insoluble adding insoluble substance. Question 21. Which process is not used in the preparation of an insoluble salt? So in the preparation of an insoluble salt, we do not use the method of crystallization. So C is the correct answer. Question 22. Which statement about group 1 and group 7 elements is correct? Okay, group 7 elements are monoatomic. This is wrong. They are diatomic. So we have Cl2, F2, Br2, I2, and so on. So this is wrong. Lithium is more reactive with water than cesium. This is the wrong case, because cesium is below lithium, is down the group in group 1, and therefore it is more reactive, and lithium is less reactive than cesium. The melting points of group 1 metal increases down the group. This is wrong as well. The one thing about melting points is that particularly for group 1 metals, the melting point and boiling points will actually decrease down the group. So that is something you have to learn, and therefore D is the correct answer. Potassium bromide reacts with chlorine to produce an orange solution. This orange solution is basically the bromine that's being formed. Because chlorine is more reactive than bromine, it's going to take its place, and then it's going to discharge bromine. Let's move on. Question 23. The properties of element titanium can be predicted from its position in the periodic table. Which rules identify the properties of titanium? Well, titanium is a transition element. This means that it can be used as a catalyst. It conducts electricity when solid. It has low density. It has high density, and it forms color compounds. And therefore, B is the correct answer. Question 24. Which diagram shows a mixture of noble gases? Remember, noble gases do not form bonds or do not react. They are basically inert under normal conditions. So you can say that they are monoatomic as well. Monoatomic, so they are only one type of atom. So this different shaded ones represent different atoms. So A is not a possibility. I'm sorry, A is definitely a possibility because it says a mixture. So the shaded one is different from the lightly shaded one. So this is A is the correct answer. B cannot be because there is some type of covalent bonding that's going on. C is also covalent bonding, and D is just one type of noble gas, but it says a mixture. Therefore, A is the correct answer. Question 25. Which property is shown by all metals? Well, they are extracted from the ores heating with carbon. This is wrong because you cannot extract sodium from its ore by heating it with carbon, because it is just more reactive than carbon, so it's not possible. They conduct electricity. This is correct. All metals do indeed conduct electricity. 26. Many metal carbonates decompose when they are heated. Which rules describe what happens when potassium carbonate, calcium carbonate, and copper carbonate are heated with Bunsen burner? Well, you have to know the decomposition reaction of carbonates as well. So if for highly reactive metal, such as potassium, carbonate, they will not decompose. It does not decompose at all. For low reactivity metals such as calcium and copper, they are going to be decomposed. They're going to be decomposed into their metal oxide form and carbon dioxide. So the most easily that it decomposes is the least reactive or in the mid reactivity series. Therefore copper carbonate is the one that's going to decompose easily. The one that decomposes with difficulty is calcium, and the one that do not decompose at all is the very stable potassium carbonate. Therefore B is the correct answer. Question 27. Molten iron from the blast furnace contain impurities such as slag. We call them slag, or you can call it silicon dioxide. So the process of turning impure iron into steel involves blowing oxygen into the molten iron and adding calcium oxide. What are the reasons for blowing in oxygen and adding calcium oxide? The reason we blow in oxygen is so that the carbon is removed. The carbon impurities can be removed by reacting with oxygen. And the reason we add a basic oxide or calcium oxide is to react with acidic impurities to make slag. And slag is basically calcium silicate. Okay, let's move on. 4 iron nails are added to 4 different metal sulfate solutions. In which solution does a displacement reaction occurs? Remember, iron nail, we have to know the reactivity series. So copper is actually below iron, so it doesn't this copper cannot displace. Magnesium is higher than iron, so magnesium sulfate can displace. Sodium and zinc as well, it is higher than Fe, so it can displace iron from its solution. But in this case, it is the solution. We are going to put iron nails inside the solution, and therefore copper, since copper is less reactive than iron nails, is going to displace from its solution. Therefore A is the correct answer. 29. Which statement about pure water is not correct? Pure water, remember, has no impurities, 0 impurities. So it means that you can check it by its physical properties. So it boils at 100 degrees at a fixed temperature of 100 degrees, and it freezes at a fixed temperature of 0 degrees Celsius. So it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, therefore B is the correct answer. Oh, I'm sorry, it says what is not correct. Not correct. Okay, so you have to pay attention to the wording of the question. It condenses at 100 degrees Celsius. This is correct. This is also correct. It turns copper to chloride paper blue. This is wrong because cobalt to chloride without water is actually blue. If you add water to it, it's going to turn pink. So this is the wrong answer. We have to choose the wrong answer. Question 30. The 3 processes in a carbon cycle are shown. Methane reacts with oxygen producing carbon dioxide and water. This is combustion. Carbon dioxide react and water are absorbed and used by plants to make oxygen. This is photosynthesis. Oxygen is used by living things to release energy. This is respiration. You have to know the equations as well. So 1 is combustion, 2 is photosynthesis, 3 is respiration, so A is the correct answer. 31. In the Haber process, nitrogen and hydrogen are reacted to make ammonia. The forward reaction is exothermic. This means the backward reaction is going to be endothermic. Which conditions produce the maximum yield of ammonia? So we can see that there are 4 moles on the left hand side and compared to the 2 moles on the right hand side. So if we increase the pressure is going to go from high to low to the side with low molecules or low moles. So we have to increase the pressure. Since the forward reaction is exothermic, decreasing the temperature favors the exothermic reaction, therefore we have to lower the temperature, therefore B is the correct answer. Question 32. Which process used to prevent iron from rusting involves sacrificial protection? So to prevent iron from rusting, you have to paint. But it's a sacrificial protection. So galvanizing is actually sacrificing. Basically, the zinc that's being coated on the iron is going to sacrifice itself. It's going to be oxidized, or it's going to react with the water and air instead of the iron. 33. A student suggests the 3 uses of calcium carbonate, limestone. Which suggestion are correct? We use calcium carbonate in the manufacture of cement. This is correct. We use manufacture of iron. We also use that. However, we don't use in treating alkaline soils. Instead, we use it to treat acidic soil because calcium carbonate is a basic. So 1 and 2 are correct. A is the correct answer. 34. One of the reactions used in the manufacture of sulfuric acid. This is called the contact process. Which catalyst is used to increase the rate of reaction? To increase the rate of reaction, we use vanadium 5 oxide. You have to know your reaction conditions. This is one of the factors that you have to remember. 35. Ethanol is made on an industrial scale by fermentation of sugars or by the reaction of ethane with steam. This is called hydration in the presence of a suitable catalyst. What is a disadvantage of making ethanol from ethane rather than by fermentation? So one of the disadvantage of making ethanol from ethane is that it is a non-renewable raw material that is being used. So B is the correct answer. 36. Which statement about compounds in the same homologous series is correct? In the same homologous series, they have same chemical properties because they have the same number of carbon atoms. They don't have same chemical properties because of the same number of carbon atoms. So this is wrong. However, they do have similar chemical properties. It's not same, but it's similar. So A and B are wrong. This leaves us with D. They have different physical properties because they have different number of carbon atoms. This is correct. If the carbon atoms is very low, such as let's say C3 versus C8 versus C64, we can see that C3 is actually a gas and C8 is a liquid and C64 is a solid. So this means because they have different state of matters, then their physical chain properties will vary. 37. Increasing the number of atoms in one molecule of hydrocarbon increases the amount of energy released when it burns. What is the correct order? So if you increase the number of carbon atoms in one molecule of hydrocarbon, it will increase the amount of energy. So the more energy, let's say, the least energy that's being released is going to be methane, and the most energy released is going to be ethane because it has more number of atoms. Because methane is CH4, ethane is C2H4, ethane is C2H6. This has more number of atoms, and therefore it's going to burn more. 38. An organic compound P reacts with zinc to produce gas Q. What are P and Q? We know that P is an organic compound. It reacts with zinc to produce a gas. So if zinc is a metal, and if you react with an acid, in this case it is an organic acid or carboxylic acid, you're going to produce zinc hydroxide, and you're going to make hydrogen. So P is going to be ethanoic acid, Q is going to be hydrogen. So B is the correct answer. 39. Alkanes undergo substitution reaction in the presence of UV light. This is an information that you have to remember as well. Which equation represents a substitution reaction of ethane? Ethane. Okay, so we are substituting with chlorine. So D is the wrong answer. And it is going to, so one hydrogen atom is going to get removed, while one molecule or one atom of chlorine is going to get introduced to the structure of ethane. So it's going to be C2H5Cl plus HCl as the byproduct. So B is the correct answer. 40. Which substances are natural polymers? We know that the proteins, carbohydrates, fats, they are all natural polymers. So proteins, carbohydrates, they are natural polymers, and therefore A is the correct answer. Okay, we have reached at the end of the video. I hope you find this very useful, and as always, thank you for watching these videos. It took a lot of effort to make these videos as well. Subscribing would be very awesome if you would like to see more content. Anyways, you can also check out my other playlists as well for chemistry, bio, and physics as well. And I hope you good luck. I wish you good luck in your upcoming exams. Bye.